I go back to the whole MLB scandal. Nobody talked about baseball until the Astros got exposed for that whole cheating scandal, and people started to talk about baseball again. Now, it's a scandal, so it's not really making the sport look good, but it gets people talking about baseball, and inevitably that gets people interested in baseball because now you're thinking about, what's the response going to be from the teams, from the fans, etc. That makes you want to watch. And you know this because I wrote a whole fucking paper on it, but if you look at the statistics of who was searching for baseball, it was like nobody compared to the other sports. And then as soon as that scandal came up, people started talking about baseball. And now look at baseball. I mean, baseball is all over social media now, highlight clips, news. Like, people care about baseball a lot more than they did before 2019. And I think a lot of that has to do with the scandal, and it kind of gave a storyline to baseball. What you're doing right now with boxing is that you're giving it a storyline. I mean, like, you have Tyson Fury, you have the big guys at the top, and then you've got, other younger guys like Ryan Garcia and the other guy. He fought. Why I can't. Anyway, there's like younger guys making a story, but a huge storyline in boxing is the Paul brothers. It gets people interested. It wants, because that's what people want. They want entertainment. They want a story. That's why the Khabib Conor fight was so big, because there was a story to follow. These YouTubers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, are giving people a storyline to watch, to see when does it end. When does Jake Paul get knocked out? When does it stop? When does Logan Paul give up boxing? And we're gonna tune in for that because we want to see the story. And it's so smart of them because it's getting clicks, it's getting attention. And you're absolutely right. Like, the older guys, the old heads, they think it's ruining the sport, but it's giving it more attention than it's ever gotten, maybe since Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson and all that stuff. Everybody's talking about boxing now.
Yeah, no, exactly. I definitely agree with you on the scandals being I think scandals are the best thing that happen to sports, because that whole thing, the MLB thing, like, I could care less about baseball, like, for real. Like, I don't think I've been to 2 games. I don't think I stayed for either.
I don't blame you, bro.
I didn't even make it to the 7th. It wasn't my doing. The people I was with just wanted to leave, but I wasn't gonna fight anyone. I'd be like, no, we have to stay to watch 4 more innings. But with the boxing, like, dude, like, that's really what combat sports has become, is just storyline. I mean, that's what it's always been. Really, it's just kind of more in your face now. Like, there was that build up and kind of that slow movement, but even with, like, when the promoters kind of started running that sport, they had to make quick storylines. Like, when was the last good storyline you've seen? Like,
honestly, man, I think
ones.
I like
It's
the
all
Jorge
fake.
Masvidal Usman one. Like,
But they were like, I bet they're boys. Like, they probably, it's all build up until the end where there's like a respect thing, and then it's like,
it's got to be the
we
Khabib
made a lot of
Conor
money
one, man.
together.
Like, that has to be the story.
I feel like that's real. Yeah.
That was so good, especially the way it ended with him jumping the fence.
Yeah, you can't make that shit. I'm like,
that was
that
so
was
good.
impressive. How good that story was. And then he just goes, dominates another fight, and he's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
I don't know. I
It's
mean,
not about that.
Every fight after the Conor fight was kind of just this idea of, is he going to stay undefeated? But there was no real. I mean, Dustin Poirier, he didn't hate Dustin Poirier. He didn't hate Gaethje. And, I think maybe the Tony Ferguson story could have been interesting because of the 5th time they were trying to do it.
I
but
think
obviously,
they were pushing that too much.
Yeah.
Like, especially at the end, it was just kind of too much, like, trying to sell it. I don't think they need to sell that fight any more than it was already. But, like, again, with the storyline of Khabib and Conor, where if they did then rematch, like, oh crap, like, how big would that have been?
That would
But
have
that's
been
why I think it made the
huge.
first fight even better because of how real it was, where Khabib was like, I don't need this. He wasn't in it for the storyline kind of thing. So I think it even elevated that first fight and kind of the culmination of that ending.
Bro, if you go to, well, they take it down a lot, but every time the UFC puts that fight up as a free fight, that is the #1 video they have. It gets like 40 million views because everybody loves that fight because it is the climax of the whole story that we've known.
Hmm.
And that story, for some reason, is still relevant to this day. You know, like even though Khabib is retired and Conor is basically on a losing streak, that story is still so prominent in
Oh,
people's
even if it
heads.
came right now, yeah. Even if they announced it tomorrow, that would be the biggest fight.
That would be the biggest fight, the absolute biggest fight. Conor could
Not even
lose three
close.
fights in a row, and that would still be the biggest fight.
Yeah, and that's the problem with boxing too, is because like there's an ending to that story, right? Like, and if they had the rematch, they have the rematch, but there would be an ending to that story. Like what boxing does is kind of just too many times we've seen the tie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, everybody knows really when there's like two big fighters announced, there's gonna be a tie. The first one, there's gonna be three fights. First one's a tie. Second one somebody wins. Third one's it's two wins in a row,
Yeah.
right? It's just how it's always been. It's just so annoying. I think that's why it's kind of going downhill.